A few days ago, this site picked up Site of the Day on awards. The overall experience is very refined, strong art direction, clean execution, and a lot of thoughtful interactions throughout. One of the first interactions you notice is how each section is introduced through scroll. As you move down the page, each section enters the viewport with a slight tilt, then gradually settles into a stable position. At the same time, those sections don't just animate, they hold their position and allow the next section to scroll over them. What makes this especially interesting is how the pinning is handled for taller sections. Rather than locking right away, those sections remain fully scrollable until all of their content has been seen. Only then do they get pinned. That single detail completely changes how the scroll experience feels. It keeps the layout readable, preserves spatial flow, and avoids the slide deck feeling you often get with pinned sections. This behavior comes down to using ScrollTrigger's pin logic with the right start and end values, and it's a great example of how small configuration choices can have a big impact. Just yesterday, I decided to recreate this interaction from scratch. I put together this small scroll-driven layout using a few placeholder sections just to focus on the mechanics of the animation. And since we haven't built a Next.js project on the channel in a while, this felt like the perfect opportunity to break down how to wire up something like this using Next.js, GSAP, and ScrollTrigger. In this video, I'll walk you through the full setup from the Next.js structure to the ScrollTrigger logic that drives the tilt and pin. If you find these kinds of rebuilds helpful and want to see more animation-focused Next.js projects like this one, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you'd like to access the source code for this project, along with hundreds of other similar micro projects and a brand new website template every month, you can check out the Pro membership via the link in the description. Alright, let's jump into the code. To keep things focused, I'm starting from a clean Next.js project that's already running locally. I've stripped out all of the default boilerplate, both the JSX and the styles, so we can start from scratch. Before we start writing the structure, let's install the dependencies we'll use. We'll start by installing GSAP, which will handle all of the animation work. I will also install GSAP's React package. The main reason for this is the useGSAP hook. It lets us run GSAP code cleanly inside React and scope our selectors to the component. And finally, we'll install Lenis for smooth scrolling. With the dependencies in place, let's quickly set up some assets. I'll open the public directory and drop in a few placeholder images. These can be anything, they are just there to give the sections some visual weight while we build the animation. Alright, with that done, let's go back to the page component and start laying out the sections. First, I'll add 6 sections to the page, each one with a unique class name. You can use any number of sections here. I'm only adding a few to make the effect obvious. At this stage, these sections could actually be left completely empty. All you would really need is a wrapper inside them, which we'll use later when we set up the animation. So if you want to, you can leave each section with just a single container div for now and come back to the content later once the animation is working. The animation logic we are building doesn't depend on the content inside, it only cares about the section structure itself. For the first section, I'm adding a container with 2 columns. On the left, there is a large heading. This acts as the main anchor for the section. On the right, I have added a paragraph of copy to give the layout some visual balance. In the second section, the layout is similar, but this time, I'm introducing an image. This image will sit inside its own wrapper on the left, and the heading and paragraph will go on the right. Again, the content itself isn't important. This is just to create variation in the layout so we can better see how the animation behaves. For the third section, I flip that layout. The text comes first, followed by the image on the opposite side. The fourth section is structured a little differently. Instead of 2 columns, there is an image at the top, followed by a heading and 2 paragraphs. This section will be taller than the others, which will become important later when we look at how pinning behaves for sections with more content. For the fifth section, I go back to a simpler 2-column layout. There is a heading on one side and a paragraph on the other, very minimal. And in the sixth section, the structure stays the same, a heading pad with a paragraph, wrapping up the scroll experience with a relaxed layout. One important thing to point out here is how everything is wrapped. Inside each section, all the actual content lives inside a div with the class name container. This separation is intentional. Later on, we'll be applying pinning to the section itself and rotation to the container inside it. Keeping those behaviors on separate elements helps avoid conflicts and gives us much finer control over the animation. Finally, at the very end of the page, I'll add a simple footer with a dummy heading inside. This isn't animated, it's just there to close out the scroll sequence cleanly. Alright, with this structure in place, let's move on to the styling. First, I'll bring in the fonts we are going to use for this layout. I am importing a bold, editorial style font for the large headings and a clean neutral font for the paragraph text. Next, I'll define a set of color variables at the root level. Each variable represents a different base color that will assign to individual sections. After that, I'll add the scroll bar. This keeps the experience visually clean and lets the motion feel uninterrupted, especially since the scroll behavior itself is a key part of the design. Now, I'll reset the default browser styles. I'm removing margins and padding everywhere and setting box sizing to border box. Next, I'll take care of images. All images are set to fully fill their containers and scale proportionally. Then I'll style the headings. All the heading text is uppercase. Use the editorial font we imported earlier and is tightly spaced. Right after that, I'll style the paragraph text. This uses the secondary font with comfortable spacing and a clear reading rhythm. It's meant to balance out the bold headings without competing with them. Next, I'll define the base styling for each section. Every section fills the viewport and hides the overflow. This is important later because once sections start pinning and rotating, we don't want content spilling outside its boundaries. For the fourth section specifically, I make it taller than the others. This gives us a section with more vertical content, which will be useful later when we demonstrate how pinning behaves differently for taller sections. Now let's move on to the container element. Each container fills its section and uses a flex layout. This is also where the initial rotation is applied. Each container starts tilted with its rotation anchored from the bottom left corner. This setup allows us to smoothly rotate it back into place later using ScrollTrigger. I'm also enabling transform optimizations here since rotation is going to be animated on scroll. Next, I will assign background colors to each section's container. Each section gets its own color from the variables we defined earlier. This makes it easier to visually distinguish sections as they scroll and pin on top of one another. After that, I'll define the column layout inside each container. Each column takes up equal space and uses flexbox, giving us flexibility to align content differently from section to section. Then, I'll style the image wrappers inside those columns. Images are constrained to a consistent vertical shape and clipped within their container. This helps keep the layout clean and prevents images from affecting the surrounding flow when we animate. Next, I'll start handling alignment differences between sections. Some sections align content toward the bottom, others center their content vertically. These small variations help keep the scroll experience from feeling repetitive. For the fourth section, I'll apply different layout entirely. Everything is centered and stacked vertically with the text aligned to the middle. This creates a visual pause in the sequence and gives the section a more grounded, composed feel. I will also narrow the image slightly and constrain the width of the text. This keeps the content readable and focused, especially since this section is taller than the others. Next, I'll style the footer. The footer fills part of the viewport, uses a dark background, and center its content both horizontally and vertically. It's not animated, it simply acts as a clean ending point once the scroll sequence is complete. Finally, I will add a few responsive adjustments. On smaller screens, text scales down, layout stacks vertically, and spacing is adjusted so everything stays balanced. The taller section is also reduced slightly so it doesn't feel overwhelming on smaller devices. And with that, the styling is done. Now let's go back to the page component and start wiring things up on the JavaScript side. First, at the very top of the file, I'll add the useClient directive. This tells Next.js that this code needs to run on the client. In the app router, components are server-side by default. Since this page uses React hooks and runs GSAP against the DOM, we need it to be a client component so everything executes in the browser. Next, I'll bring in the imports we need. I'm importing useEffect and useRef from React. We'll use these to manage references and side effects. Then I'll import GSAP itself along with the ScrollTrigger plugin. I'm also importing useGSAP hook from the GSAP React package. We'll use this hook a bit later to run our animation logic in a scoped and predictable way. And finally, I will import React Lenis, which gives us a React wrapper around Lenis for smooth scrolling. Once everything is imported, I'll register the ScrollTrigger plugin with GSAP. This step is required before we can use ScrollTrigger anywhere in the project. Next, I'll create a ref for Lenis. This ref will give us access to the underlying Lenis instance, which we'll need to manually control scrolling. I'll create another ref for the main container. This will be attached to the main element and used later to scope our GSAP animations, so they only target elements inside this component. After that, I will attach that ref to the main wrapper. As I said, we'll use it as the scope root for useGSAP later. Now let's set up Lenis. Inside a use effect, I'll start by defining a small update function. This function receives a time value from GSAP's trigger and passes it into Lenis's ref method. Since GSAP provides time in seconds and Lenis expects milliseconds, it multiplies it before passing it along. We'll also sync Lenis with ScrollTrigger. Whenever Lenis emits a scroll event, we tell ScrollTrigger to update. This keeps both systems perfectly aligned and prevents any desync between smooth scrolling and scroll-based animations. Then I'll add the update function to GSAP's trigger. This lets GSAP drive Lenis's animation loop instead of relying on Lenis's internal request animation frame function. Right after that, I disable GSAP's lag smoothing. This helps keep scroll-based animations responsive and prevents delays when the tab loses focus. Finally, I return a cleanup function that removes the update callback from the ticker. This ensures everything is properly cleaned up if the component ever unmounts. With that logic in place, I will add the React Lenis component to the page. I'm passing in the ref we created earlier and disabling Lenis's automatic ref since we are already driving it manually through GSAP. And that's it. Smooth scrolling is now set up and fully synced with ScrollTrigger. Next, we'll move on to the useGSAP hook and start defining the actual scroll and pin animations. First, I'm going to use the useGSAP hook. This is where all of our GSAP and ScrollTrigger logic will live. And notice I'm also passing a second argument with a scope value. By setting the scope to our main container ref, we are basically telling GSAP only look for elements inside this component. This keeps everything isolated and it also makes cleanup much more reliable. Next, inside this hook, I will grab all the sections on the page. We are going to treat each section as one step in the scroll experience and loop through them to apply the same behavior consistently. So I'll loop through the sections using a for each method. Inside this loop, we'll get access to two things: the section itself and its index, and we'll use that index in a moment for a small condition. Now for each section, I'll grab the inner container. This is important. Remember earlier we wrapped each section's content inside a container. That's because we want to separate responsibilities. The section will handle the pin behavior and the container will handle the tilt animation. Keeping those behaviors on separate elements avoids conflicts and gives us better control. Next, we'll create the tilt animation. I'm animating the container's rotation back to 0, so each container starts tilted in CSS, and as we scroll into a section, it gradually settles into a perfectly straight position. I am keeping the easing as none here. That's because the animation is tied to scroll progress, and when something is scrubbed, easing can sometimes make it feel like it's drifting instead of tracking the scroll directly. Now let's wire that animation to ScrollTrigger. For the trigger, I'm using the section itself. Then I set the start point so the animation begins as the section enters the viewport, and I set the end point so the rotation finishes once the section reaches a more visible, stable position. Finally, I enable scrub. This means the rotation is no longer time-based, it becomes scroll-based. So the animation plays forward when you scroll down and reverses when you scroll back up, staying perfectly synced to your scroll position. At this point, if you refresh the page, you should already see the effect working. Next, we'll handle the pin behavior, but before we do that, I'm adding a small guard condition. If this is the last section in the list, we stop here and skip pinning. The reason is simple. Pinning is meant to create a handoff into the next section. For the final section, there is nothing after it that needs to scroll over and replace it, so pinning it doesn't really add anything, and it can even feel awkward. Now, for every section except the last one, I'll create a new ScrollTrigger instance for pinning. The trigger is still this section, but this time the start and end points are different. And this is where the behavior becomes really intentional. We start pinning when the bottom of the section reaches the bottom of the viewport. That means the section gets to scroll naturally first, especially if it's taller and contains more content. Only after you have fully reached the end of that section do we pin it in place. Then we keep it pinned until the section's bottom reaches the top of the viewport. During this time, the next section scrolls up and visually replaces it. Then I turn on pinning and set pin spacing to false. Pin spacing false is what creates that stacked, continuous feel. We are not adding any extra space in the document flow, so instead of pushing the page down, the next section can slide over the pin section cleanly. and that's the full logic. We now have two layered behaviors working together. The container tilts into place as you scroll in, and the section pins at the right moment so the next section can cover it. That was it. Hope you found the video helpful. See you in the next one.